What's up, guys? In this video I'm going to take you through how we find commercial clients like this gymnastics facility for our welding business. And at the same time, I'll go through some of the manufacturing processes we did to take this from a prototype to a production run for this gym product accessory. So with that said, I'll probably jump back and forth between both topics as we progress through the video. The first step in the actual manufacturing is going to be weld prep and prefabrication. So it'll be a lot of the cutting, deburring, and in this case I'm cutting a template to put a miter on all the tubes that I need to cut. So if you're looking for commercial clients for general fabrication type work, there's kind of two routes you can go. One route is you're seeking out contractors, construction type businesses, whether they're hardscape, landscape, or general contractors, framers, and house builders. Basically the type of people that are familiar with building things but don't necessarily specialize in metal. And then the other route is businesses that need metal furnishings, but they're not familiar. So this will be something like restaurants, in this case a gym, or businesses that sell other goods and services other than manufacturing and building. And so we like this option because it puts you more of a standpoint as the expert in the field. They're comparing whether they buy the custom product or get a option that may or may not be available from a big box store or retailer. So to identify these potential clients and offer them work, it's actually fairly simple. In your daily life, you'll find businesses all over the place with metal furnishings one way or another. So they may have a railing to their front entrance. They may have, in the case of a restaurant, if you open the back doors to the kitchen, you'll find that everything is metal, mostly stainless steel. If you go to a gym, you'll walk in there and see that there's tons and tons of racking and equipment all made out of metal. So this is kind of how we find our work. We send messages, we walk in and talk to owners, we DM them on social media, we cold call them and say, hey, we're a welder, we do metal work, and we're wondering if you have anything that you need made or anything that you need repaired. So the moment you make your first sale or even send out a few quotes, it snowballs from there. Now your reach outs can sound more like this. Hello gym owner, we've worked with other gyms and we offer various metal solutions, whether it's racking or specialized equipment. Or insert any service you've recently quoted to other businesses or any recent project you've achieved. So that's the basic framework as a strategy to reach out to new commercial clients. But now let's jump back into the video and I'll take you through the next step in the manufacturing process. As you can see, we're forming this profile that we need for our gym accessory. It's a little bit of a tricky one to do, and we by no means have a great deal of experience or equipment in forming. Now, this is a trick I learned. You can make radius bends by doing a series of little bends, and it'll give the effect of a round bend. Sometimes you just have to make do with what you got, and to be honest, if you brought this profile or a drawing of this profile to many metal shops, they would look at you and say, we can't do that here, go ask this company or go try this company X. So sometimes it's just whether you're able to troubleshoot it or figure out how to do it or find the company that'll do it for you and you mark up their services. Once we have that profile most of the way bent, I need to tighten it up. So we use a bench vise. And I don't have a permanent installation, so we just weld our bench vise to the table and use it when needed. So to tighten it up, I'm just going to clamp it around a thick metal rod that's the same dimension of the racking that this product's going to hang on. And after that point, I have to trim down the legs of the profile. I lost the footage for that, but it's no stress. From there, we'll jump into some of the welding, and then we got to put one hole in this before I do the final assembly. So I'm going to explain to you how we took this job from a prototype a year prior to a full production run for this gym and how we landed it. We followed the same process described at the beginning. We were reaching out to all the gyms we could find in our city, offering our services to build metal racking. and they contracted us to do so. After this job was done, they reached out with this project in mind. They had seen a product similar, but as their racking that they made for this type of product was custom made in-house by them, they didn't have a solution they could just buy online. They were a little unsure of the custom building process or building to suit, and to be honest, so was I. So I gave them a price for one and a price for four, and I tried my best to explain that if we're building one, it's going to be a prototype and it might need some revision. This is a very important lesson we've learned, that if you're not sure of something, explain it to your customer and say, I'm willing to try, but I'm unsure. This will save you countless struggles and disappointed customers. Once we made the first prototype, it did need some revision, and they seemed happy with it in the end. And a year went by when they finally reached out and asked for an order of 6 more pairs. This ended up being even larger than I expected, and we were happy to take on the work now that we had done a prototype. And if we jump back into the video, you see that once we're done with the bench vise, we just cut the tacks and remove it, and we're back to having a cleared welding table. Okay, so the next step on the build was welding on the first bracket, because we had to put a hole in it, and as we're bending these by hands, there's a bit of variance on these bends. So basically we wanted to weld this bracket in place and put the hole in after. So I came up with a spacing method so that there's no measuring tape needed. This is a trick that'll save you a lot of time, especially for easy numbers. So it was 1.5 inches from the top edge. So instead of always trying to measure and mark, just grab an 1.5 inch tube or any piece of material that's the dimension you're looking for, and you could snug it up to that rather than always grabbing a tape measure. After tacking it in place, I get ready to fully weld it out. This bottom section is going to be hard to clean, so I put a piece of tubing in there so that weld spatter doesn't get into the area that I won't be able to touch up after with the grinder. At this point, I'll get this piece fully welded on, and then we'll set up to drill the hole that we need. I'm sure some of you will notice that I'm stacking tacks instead of running a bead. No real excuse, I had the machine set hot and I didn't want to burn through. I do this more often than I care to admit, but the pieces turned out like they should, and as far as I can tell, they hold and they will hold. So once this bracket is fully welded, the next step is to put the hole that I mentioned earlier. I'll set up with a mag drill. This is actually one of the first tools I got when starting this business, and I use it fairly regularly. It's one of those things you definitely don't need, but when you have it, it's an extreme convenience. For our type of work, 95% of the time we're working with steel, so this is just a blessing to have. It clamps onto the piece, and you can drill your hole with the precision and sturdiness of a drill press, but far more portably. The actual drilling into metal isn't anything crazy, just make sure you lubricate, put down enough pressure, and what you're trying to get is that spaghetti-like chipping of the metal, so that gives you a good indication that you're going at the right speed and putting the right amount of pressure. If you're getting more of a dust type material, then that's obviously not ideal, and you're probably about to burn out a bit, or your bit is burned out. So that hole was the last step of like prefabrication that technically could have been done before welding, but as I mentioned before, there's a reason we wanted to do it after the bracket was welded on. And from this point on, every piece is cut and prepped, and it's just full assembly mode. So we're going to tack every piece of the product in place. This is pretty common practice, so we'll put everything together with these small tacks and then go around the product doing all the finish welds. This is pretty common practice. The idea is that everything's in the right shape and squared up, and instead of fully welding one section where the heat might distort it or pull it into the wrong direction, bring stuff off square, when you have frames, you know, fully put together and then you weld, the structure of the product keeps everything in check while you're welding it out. So that's what we're doing here. Nothing crazy about it. And once we have that all done, you'll see me kind of manipulating the piece around and finishing up the welds. Basically any seam I can get to, I'll fill it with metal, and it's a bit of grinder work, and then we paint it. Okay, and one last time I'll jump back to the method of finding these commercial clients. And I specifically us, we've had great success working with gyms just because we've learned what kind of products they're looking for. We've done a few of them. So like I said, once you do one or several quotes, it becomes very familiar to approach clients and customers in a similar industry. So once you can say that, oh, I've worked with a gym, or we've worked with this gym, or we've made these types of products, it becomes easier and easier to make those reach outs. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And it doesn't need to be gyms. Like I said, you could take that approach with restaurants, for example, and say you're going to focus on stainless steel stuff and say, hey, I've done repairs, or I've done custom fit ups for your countertop work or for your stainless steel cabinets, and that's the type of work I do. Once you've done one and you have some pictures or you have some experience dealing with owners, you just go on to the next one. You knock on doors, you send them DMs, you call them and say, I'm available and I'm ready to work in your industry. So that's the advice I want to leave you with today. And to give you some rapid fire examples, it could be some aluminum focus in marinas and boatyards. It could be racking and display focus in retail environments for stores, whether it's coat racks and hangers and displays for clothing stores, or specialized racking and carts for warehouse environments. Again, you're just looking for types of businesses that don't necessarily deal with manufacturing themselves. They're not contractors and builders. You'll find customers this way that are looking for you to guide them and looking for a solution that you can offer without the competition. You're not competing against the next welder. You're just competing against their budget. This is the solution they're looking for, and this is how much you can do it for. And then they decide whether they can afford it or not, or whether there's another option. And in general, custom solutions, they're going to have a hard time finding an option. So you got to offer the solution that more or less can't be compared with anything else. Now, if you have any questions on some of the manufacturing processes or the equipment we're using, feel free to let us know in the comments. And then on that same note, if you're looking for more advice or what you can do for reach outs for general fabrication type of work, make sure to let us know in the comments. We'll be sure to have a look and give our best answer. And now really quickly, we'll jump back into the video one last time. You'll see we're finishing up all the welding here. What you don't see is once we finish these welds, we'll do a bit of grinder work, clean everything up with a flap disc, and then paint them red. Once everything's dry, we're going to slip on a heat shrink handle onto the edge of this piece, and then I come around with a torch and just heat up all the heat shrink so everything's tight and holds well. And last of all, but certainly not the least, please follow along. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and let us know what you want to see next. If you want to support us outside of YouTube, check the links in the description. We have an Etsy store with a lot of products that we make, and some links to our other social medias.